are going to record this, but if there's anything that you want to say off the record, just let me know. We'll pause the recording. But we do record it so we can share it with folks who weren't able to make it to the live session because we think that these discussions are important to be had and shared within the grants community. I think there's a lot of discussion in the grants community about how to use AI on a very practical basis, and we don't maybe step back and look at, big picture stuff, I think, often enough, or, think about how maybe we shouldn't be using AI more often, right? I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself real quick. My name is Melody Hernandez. I'm a grant consultant in San Francisco. Well, primarily grant, I think grant and grants adjacent work. So I do a lot of like strategic planning and things like that, generally because folks realizing that, they want their grant work to kind of help amplify the impact of the organization. Or maybe they want a grant professional facilitating that conversation because they want to make sure that the plans that they're coming up with kind of, are in alignment with their development plans, right? And Fielding and I decided to start hosting these monthly AI discussions for, grant with a grant focus because we were having these discussions amongst ourselves and kind of feeling like, ooh, we bring up some interesting perspectives that maybe we should get others to kind of weigh in on as well. And we don't often land on a solution, but often, discuss things that concern us. So, Fielding, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Fielding Jezreel. I'm also a grant consultant, primarily in the federal grant space. I'm located in St. Louis. And like Melody said, we just started having conversations and felt like there was a real, just like a space that was missing for grant professionals in particular to talk about how AI is impacting our work. How do we want it to impact our work? What are some potential concerns that we have? And so we've spent the last couple of these sessions, and it's been kind of a mix, right? So sometimes we are talking about like, oh my gosh, this thing is driving me crazy, and everyone needs to know that this is happening. And sometimes it's sharing how one of us is using AI and or what we're learning. And so we are happy to drive part of the conversation with, things that we're aware of and things that are on our minds, but we also just want to open it up to Amy and Carla as well to say like, hey, here's what we're thinking. These are what our concerns are. And if you're not, and if that is not something you want to do, no problem. Melly and I can talk all day. We're very good at talking.
I'll introduce myself.
Yeah.
So I'm Amy, and I live outside of Boston, and I have essentially most of my decade of experience is writing state and foundational and corporate grants for a nonprofit that I started. It was a farm with a mission of hunger relief. So I kind of have this niche in agriculture. Um, and I'm hoping to write federal grants at some point. I'm taking a class with Fielding, which is great. And I have been sort of like testing out ChatGPT and Copilot, and sort of just like reading a little bit about the privacy issues and what you should or shouldn't, or what you get when you pay versus using it free. And one of the areas I've been also kind of using it is to kind of do math more quickly or create like the formulas I need more quickly to um, kind of do that around like increasing efficiency or production in agriculture. I've learned some hard lessons. Like, don't tell your client you're going to like do this for 5 different crop types that are completely different. Like hay that's weighed by the ton, or strawberries that's by the bushels, and apples that are by the peck. Like, don't do that. Give them two. That's all they need. So, um, but I'm definitely more like I really have this like internal struggle between I think AI has like given me, provide me some more outcomes or some more measures, but like my hesitancy to let it how much writing I wanted to do because like I wanted to make my own independent thoughts. And if I put something in and I'm like, I need you to help me clarify this sentence or this paragraph, that's fine. But like I'm setting my own limits around because I think when you let AI write something, it's like, yeah, that totally does not look like a human wrote it. So where are those lines? That's my thought.
Yeah.
And I'm going to eat, so I'm going to go off. camera.
All right. And Carla, how about
And
you?
I was hoping to get all of my answers from you today. All of my answers. So I work for a federal grant. Thank goodness it just got refunded for another 5 years. It was a little rough there for a little while, and if this administration had anything to do with it, it would be gone. But it's an education grant, so it was our program in was around before the Department of Education was created. So they had that going for it, whereas it helps a number of people. But so I work for a federal grant. In the last few years, I've also written grants for the public health space and education. And um, I'm taking other classes like Amy, and Amy, I'm north of Boston, so we're in the same state. Um, uh, I'm taking classes now about AI in the classroom. And as Amy said, she doesn't want to use it for writing. Well, that's the way we feel, but these students are using it. So we have to figure out ways to use it in a very creative way so that their critical thinking skills and analysis, it still is intact. And if it's a creative assignment, that you need to create this AI virtual museum visit, and whatever you need to see in that museum, things that they actually are getting some value out of, some educational learning, some interest. That's how I think we have to move forward. When I do teach, and not teaching this semester, but the next time I teach, I am going to try some of this stuff out because AI is here. And when students are taking 5 classes, yes, you want to think that, oh, they don't want to use it because they want to use their own voice. Well, heck, we've all been in that situation. You got to write a paper. You got to get it done by tomorrow because everybody waits till the last minute as a student. They don't care. They don't care at the end. Not all of them. I won't say all of them, but so I just was interested in, and I know that I use it every now and then I didn't at first. And then all of a sudden, you have these requirements in the grants and you're like, I don't even know what that is. So you find out more information about that and then you reword it to fit the capabilities or someone's, what fits their resume and the expertise that they have. So I've used it in that capacity. But I was interested. I consider you all experts,
We're
but
certainly
that's me.
opinionated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very opinionated, I would have to say, and I think it is, couple things kind of jumped out at me so far with what folks are saying. And I think, one thing that jumps out at me is, kind of a lot of focus on if you have Chat GPT actually write something like from scratch, it doesn't sound like a human wrote it, right? It sounds like Chat GPT wrote it. That might be something that improves over time. I feel like I've already seen improvement on that, because I think, these AI companies, they get that as feedback and then they're like, can we make this sound better, right? But it just reminded me, I was on a grant station, had a what do grant makers think of AI or something conversation on Monday, or a presentation that I joined, and they visited a bunch of different funders' websites, or they had kind of screenshots of them of this is what these funders are saying on their websites about AI, and one of them was hey, if you have AI write it, rewrite it. And then there was like an M dash and it said, including getting rid of M dashes or something like that. And it was just so funny to me that like, they even used an M dash in a sentence to point out that that is something that funders, like a lot of people are pegging. And as somebody who used a lot of M dashes pre-AI, I am very frustrated that this very useful writing tool has been taken away from me, right? But yeah, I think and the I say this a lot, I say this on these calls, I say it outside of these calls. Part of the reason why I ended up focusing on grant work under the umbrella of development is because I firmly believe grant work, when done correctly, increases the impact of programs, right? And I'm in this line of work because I care about the impact in the community of the organizations and the work that I'm supporting. And so I'm like, oh, wow, this is great. When you dangle a big check in front of somebody, it creates time and space to sit down and make more impactful programs that make my community better, that make our world better, which is what I'm trying to do, right? And I think using ChatGPT at the wrong points of the grant process it hurts the community because now we're no longer sitting down and putting this critical thinking to the task at hand. And, these are people generally, people that we're trying, this humanity that we're writing this for. We're taking the humanness out of the part of the process that really is meant to sit down and think through some of this stuff. And it's not always even about getting the grant. It's about the process of sitting down and thinking through the questions that the funder's asking you to get to the solutions.
But what if you keep not getting the grants? Like you're putting all your effort into it. I feel the same way. I'm putting all my effort into reading exactly what these people want, mapping it out, putting nice tables in. And then the other person who may win the grant, they just put the whole requirements into GPT and then got out the whole grant response. Like, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. Yeah.
So
And
there's,
Fielding, you have ideas of how to use it besides having it right? Like to
well,
process, right?
I think so. There's this phrase "human in the loop," right? And the human in the loop idea is basically that there are human things that need to be done. There are human checkpoints along the way, and to me, no one should be sitting down with free chat GPT and opening a chat and saying, write a grant about a farm. Like that is not a useful that is not useful in any way to anyone. Nothing you get out of that is going to be usable, right? So I think I think part of the reason I want to have these conversations is like, yeah, that doesn't work. We all agree. And what does grant writing look like in 2030? Because it's not going to look like it does with no chat GPT, right? Like in no world that I can imagine are we going to return to 2020 grant writing in 2030. So like what do we have to pull apart that is important to the work that the human has to do, and where can AI fit in really nicely? So I gave an example last time and I wanted to come back to it anyway, and I think it fits in here. So I shared that I was doing a training for a bunch of food entrepreneurs. Some were farmers with value add products, but the grant was for food entrepreneurs. I have a deep network into the Black urban farms here in St. Louis. I've worked with a bunch of sort of conveners in that space, and so I went to them and said, "Hey, there's this grant. I know your folks A don't even know about this, and B aren't grant writers, don't have grant writers on staff. Most are, one or two people operations. I would love to train them on the grant, teach them about the grant. We're gonna dig into their individual projects. I'm gonna do coaching around project design, and then I'm gonna give them a custom GPT that's gonna write their grant for them." And so I had just done this training and I was like, I don't know how it's going to go because I had follow-up calls with each one as a kind of a last check before they submitted. And I would say it was proof to me that humans need to be doing a grant writer's work is around alignment, design, right? And I don't care about the writing. And so the folks in the room who were like, Fielding, here's my project. This is what I'm thinking. This is what, how do I do this? How do I align this? those people in the room who we went back and forth and we shaped their project in the session, they could go use the GPT successfully. I got on a call with someone who had been very quiet. I asked her multiple times, do you think you're going to apply? She's like, no, I'm just going to go in on this collaborative application. I don't want to do my own. She booked a call for her own, and it was a disaster. Like the whole grant was a disaster because she wasn't used to aligning to an RFP, right? So she had a cool project. It was a complete misfit for the funding opportunity. And so it sort of reinforced for me that, like, yes, some people write as a part of their thinking process, and those people are going to have to keep writing, right? Those are folks who need to physically pen in their hand, like do an outline. Those folks exist, great. And I think for some of us, the writing isn't as important as a process, and rather whatever the processes are that help us to formulate ideas and get them on paper eventually, like however that can happen, that's okay. And that's where I think ChatGPT can be really helpful. And so, Carla, to your point, like, I don't think you are losing out to people who are just putting the application into ChatGPT. I don't think, now, are they using ChatGPT? Maybe. And I would say a human plus AI is always going to be better than a human by themselves.
Yeah. And that's what the education with the AI too.
Yeah.
It's you have to combine the two, and just use it in very creative ways.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. I just find it difficult. Like, what if you take a picture of the exact requirements of this grant, and then you tell it to write a grant that uses the exact requirements? But I found after a few years of doing grants too, it's the people that you have on the project. Like you said, you interviewed all these people. It's really their connections. Maybe they didn't have any connections, but they had they had the background. I feel like the relationships that people build with certain other sectors, that's how you get them too. You just have to make those human relationships.
Yeah,
And I would say you can put the requirements directly into AI. Like, I don't have a problem with that. And I do that for my clients, and I have these banks of responses that AI is pulling like responses from. But if you just put, here's the criteria, here's the scoring criteria, yes, AI can write you a grant, but it's going to put in things that are completely unachievable, right? Because it's trying to be jazzy. It's like jazz hands all the time. It's like, you're going to serve 5,000 people, and you're like, we only serve 50 a year. But so again, like, human in the loop. Like, a funder's not going to look at that 5,000 number knowing that you serve 50 people a year and think that you have any business getting this grant. So I think it does work against you, right? Ultimately, if you are truly not, and again, I don't know that this is happening. It probably is, where folks are misusing AI and ultimately, like, submitting proposals that are completely unfeasible.
And then is AI reading it, or is a human reading it?
Well, and that's where, I think for me, um, prior to AI and with AI, um, the least efficient way to increase your win rate is, in my opinion, is by focusing on writing a better proposal.
100%.
Right? The best way to increase your win rate is to, build relationships with funders and cross opportunities off your list that aren't really mission aligned, and you don't have a good relationship, and have less than a 1% chance of winning, right? So because of AI, so ways that AI has impacted the sector that we all have to just really become acutely aware with. And we talked about this a lot on our last call. But it's the idea that people can pump out so much quicker proposals. So funders are getting inundated with proposals, right? So opportunities that were at 10%, awarded 10% of their grants in 2023 are awarding less than 1% in 2025. They're awarding the same number of grants. It's just that they got that many more applications. So we've seen funders who've switched to invitation only because they're getting swarmed with application. We've seen, what was the federal one that you talked about last time, Fielding, that they...
Yeah, so I can't remember if it's NSF or NIH, but one of them has reduced the total number of applications a single PI can submit. So it used to be unlimited, and and they've been
Yeah,
inundated. They're getting 4 times the number of proposals than they ever have before for every single
right,
funding opportunity. And so that now you're capped at like 6, I think, which is hugely problematic for researchers whose names are all over all of these funded proposals, right? They've just been they're incredible in their field, and now unfortunately because AI is being abused essentially, they're capped at 6 per year.
Yeah, and
So
it is like there
yeah,
it is making, changes in the way that funders are, it's changing how all this process is working, and it's changing very quickly. But one of the ways that it is going to change it is going to, I mean, we've seen folks' win rates have gone down, right?
for
They've
sure.
gone down because of, more competition. They've gone down because we can all submit more proposals that, with the help of AI, right? Those of us that are using it. And then, you just more proposals that maybe, so I'm trying to think of how to say it. Like it used to be like, hey, I know I'm going to spend 40 hours or 100 hours on this proposal, so I'm only going to devote that time if I really know it's a good fit. And now it's like, we'll run it through Chat GPT and, or Claude or one of these. And then if we get it, great. But like, I'm not going to spend 100 hours on it, right? And so like all of this has caused win rates to go down, coupled with the loss of a lot of, funding streams that are happening already. But so that's where it's even more important that by the time it should be that by the time you're ready to uh um submit that proposal, that you are you know um uh that you are sorry, somebody is asking to record, and I think I'm already recording, so
I
just
saw someone else's name pop up, and I thought it was
yeah.
someone outside joining.
Yeah, somebody's joined as under my name, and I'm not
And
okay.
they just left. So
Okay.
something funky was going on.
Yeah, that's why sorry for my distraction, but I'm like, why am I asking to myself to record? Anyways, so yeah, just kind of wanting to reiterate that that is building that relationship up front is the part where,
Mm.
going to increase those chances. So sorry, I was saying it should be by the time you're ready to submit that you already know that that funder wants to fund you, right? And that's really going to be the best use of your time. So even though all this AI is taking us in a way further away from a human involved process, it's also bringing us right back to the human connections being more important, which I also kind of don't like because I work with a lot of folks who have less access to the people in those positions. So I see that it's going back to who you know and who you're rubbing elbows with, which is frustrating that AI is taking us further in that direction. And I've heard a lot about how AI is going to increase accessibility. Well, not when it's forcing funders to move towards invitation only. And then that's going to go back to, hey, it's who I went to college with, it's who I went to prep school with, it's who I know on their board, right? Those are all things that take us further away from the folks who already have less access to resources and places of power and privilege.
Yeah, and you know what, how, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was done.
Um, so Carla, I kind of think of it like this. Do you work for a college or university? I wasn't,
Yes.
yeah. So, so I kind of think of it, I'm sort of at this phase in my life with my teens, like,
Mm.
like colleges have, it's like this huge like marketing push, right? To like build the brand and get applicants and like drive the applicant pool, right? And so these huge numbers of kids like apply, especially because there's a common app and that's like makes the life so much easier, right? And then but the class may only still take like 3,000 kids, but they get like 76,000 applications a year, right? So if they can drive up the numbers, right, that ratio of like applications to accept it. Moving
Yikes.
on. Um, it's right. It's like the more applicants you can drive, you reject more kids, and you look like a more exclusive school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, ours is going, I work for a state university, so we're
Yeah.
just looking for students. And I look, the grant that I serve is low income first generation. So, um, yeah, we're doing okay, but it's absolutely your analogy is right, is that, um, the more people that you have, you take fewer. Um, yeah. How does the invitation only work? It doesn't go out to a combis or it doesn't,
Right. So
it,
essentially, some funders will say on their website, we're invitation only. There's no open application. So they don't release an RFP. There's no LOI process. And they will reach out to individual
certain,
organizations and invite them to apply. And sometimes when they have an invite only, you can get in contact with them to have a conversation to get pre-approved. And then they'll send you the application. So it can work a couple of different ways, but it certainly is not like an open invitation and anyone who can access the link can apply. So it
hmm,
tends to be more exclusive. It tends to be, and in some ways, when I was working in house, I liked knowing that something was like that because in some ways, we, at least locally, we had all these family foundations that funded the same organizations every single year, but ostensibly had an open application process. And so my supervisor would be like, "Hey, Fielding, you got to apply for this." And I'd be like, "But I've looked at the 1990s and they funded the same 8 organizations for the last 10 years. Like, this is not a good use of my time." So, I think sometimes I wish funders would go to those processes if that is actually what they are going to do. Like, don't waste my time if there's no way that
yeah.
either the organization or my client is going to get through the door.
I found also that if you applied to a different state, the priority was always to the people, the companies in the state that were writing the grant.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we wrote a lot just to try to break that system because you want to have that experience on paper. But I don't think it maybe we got one from Delaware, but other than that, we tried in Oregon, but those were more climate ones that are cut anyway now. So that's the other disturbing aspect of this whole thing. So many have been cut, so many different grants for different things. Mm.
Melody, you mentioned that some of the how did this work? So you mentioned that it was GrantStation sharing that there were funders were saying different things on their websites, right? And one of them said something like, "Make sure you clean it up and get rid of the M dashes." To me, that is like the completely wrong thing to focus on, right?
Yes, right.
Because like we just finally got foundations on board with the idea that like maybe the grant writing itself shouldn't be why someone does or does not get the grant. It should be the program, it should be the design, it should be the outcomes, it should be the experience, it should be the community connectedness, all of these things that you can evaluate that aren't like, oh, there's some grammar errors in this, right? I felt like we were finally like making some progress there with some funders, and to hear that now it's like use chat GPT, but don't make it sound like chat. Like, I frankly, at the end of the day, don't care if it sounds like chat GPT if I believe that the project is well designed. And I think we've we've we're missing something by just saying a grant shouldn't sound like it was written by chat GPT. And what I mean is like, if we want ChatGPT to be an accessibility tool, like if what we need is a tool that just writes because that is not someone's strength, that is not how they think, but they have a freaking cool idea and they record themselves on Zoom talking through a design, right? Feed that transcript into ChatGPT and say, respond to these prompts. Like, why do we care? and so this is where I keep going back to like, I wish funders would adopt the AI. I wish funders would get on calls with program folks and have a series of questions that this person responds to verbally. And then the funder themselves goes and answers all their questions that need a particular answer. And I think instead of we've decided that if something sounds like it was written by ChatGPT, that no one thought. And I just don't, I think that's a false equivalency. Like, does it sometimes mean that? Yes, definitely, right? When someone comes in to your Zoom room and starts imitating people's names, is it probably a problem? Yeah, might be an indication, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your Zoom's going to be taken out. You know what I mean? So like, we create these sort of like, if this, then this, And I don't think that's true, but we are so skeptical that like writing means something. Like good writing means a person's smart. Good writing means there's a good project design. ChatGPT writing means that nobody thought about the program. Like I just don't think these things are true.
Yeah, that's really something for me to like take pause about and think about, because I think there are some like generational differences in the way people are thinking about GPT, because I remember when the first computer like came into our classroom, there was one, we all shared it. And then eventually I remember like it was probably in 10th grade, there was a computer and it had spell check. It's like
Yeah.
amazing, right? So, you know, like I wrote papers by hand. Like my mom wrote her PhD like on one of those electrical typewriters. I was like, that's crazy. Like so I think, it was always burned into me that like what is good writing, critical thinking, analytical skills. Like I think there's a generational piece about like how I was educated and the values that were driven home. Um, yeah. And for someone who's at a different generation, like computers and like whatever has just been like more part of your life. And so there's more like acceptance of it, I guess, where I have this resistance where I'm like, I'm a critical thinker. I'm going to be a good writer. Right? Because that's like so ingrained in who I am. But I think the other piece is to like speak to the use of AI. So like being a parent who's neurodiverse and having a child who's neurodiverse. I understand like the accommodations and the value of like doing things differently. Like, yeah, like if he can verbally put something in a computer and it can help him organize and it can get him where he needs to go,
Yeah.
but the ideas are his, that's not like cheating.
So
And I've had to let go of that. Like that's been my big like.
Yeah.
So I was having this memory a couple days ago. I was walking through a grocery store actually, and I heard that announcement over the very automated announcement over the loud system. And to me, that's always so dystopian, like you're in Walgreens and they're like, flu shots are now available. Everyone get your flu shots. And you're like, it's just creepy to me. But it just triggered in something in me about, do you remember when everyone was driving into lakes and stuff? Because when GPS first came out, sometimes it would say, take a left at the next light, and you take a left and end up in a lake, right? And like you're just, part of you is like, look around you, don't drive into the lake, because this very British sounding voice or whatever it is told you to. And last night we were driving to a restaurant and GPS told us that we should go to the stop sign, take a right, take another right, go 2 blocks, take another right, go 2 blocks, take a right, and go around to be in front of the restaurant because we were across the street. And my partner is looking at this GPS and starting to go forward. I said, park right there. We can walk across the street. You know what I mean? And I think that's where we're at with AI.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
We have to picture it like being these faulty GPS systems from, I don't even know, what was that, 2010 or something, where they're going to tell you to drive into the lake. But you've got to stop and think, do I really want to be driving into the lake? And even though they're better now, they're still not perfect. And we constantly have to be telling ourselves, is this taking me the wrong direction? Is it doing something dangerous to myself or my community? Is it wasting my time? Right. And we have to kind of like, when we talk about the AI voice, I mean, I'm really thinking like voice. What voice would you give AI? Would you give it Siri's voice? Or would you make it sound like, Joe
And make it sound like
delivery
anything you
man or
want.
something. Right? So I've said this before too. The voice I give AI is that pretentious asshole in college that I wanted to prove wrong, right? That's the voice I give AI. I'm going to find any fault you made. I'm going to find any flaw, and I'm going to giggle while I correct it because I'm smarter than you, AI, right? Like that's the voice I give it, is like not something that is I'm going to believe and is this almighty voice, but the voice of of someone that, I mean, I don't necessarily think that everything you say is gospel kind of thing. But that being said, I think part of the reason why funders are cautioning folks to make it sound less like AI is partially, which I think is important information to share with folks, right? Because again, this is an access thing. Those of us who have paid versions, who have years of winning grants to plug in and say, use this voice, right? Those are going to not come out sounding so AI written. And when you're using the free version and when it comes out looking like every other, Chat GPT free version written response, it is going to stop and make us think, did you just ask it to write something for you and weren't critical in looking at it, or were you, looking at it? And I would rather see that there's some grammatical errors in there, because I've been a reviewer. I was recently a reviewer and got a lot of very obviously Chat GPT written responses for small arts orgs. Small arts orgs sometimes that don't even have one paid staff. It's all volunteer. I get that they had to run it through Chat GPT, but like honestly, when I see a flaw in there, I'm like, oh well, at least you read it. Like,
Yeah.
edited
I
it
have
enough
a
that that flaw got in there, right?
I have a question around people's, and I didn't know if there was like a main topic for today, so I don't want to diverge
There's
from.
no main topic. It's just open-ended.
All right, great. So my mind can go everywhere. So does anyone have any opinions on like using Chat GBT? I use Microsoft products, but I also work with Google Works because that's it's a free way of connecting to people who don't want to pay for Microsoft. Um, I don't like what are I've kind of tested, like I've asked the computer, the AI tool, the different AI tools to like do the same task and see what comes up. But like, I don't know if anyone has like a real opinion on it.
I have very strong opinions and I teach on the well, and I mean, maybe you've seen this even in the curriculum that you have access to, but like Copilot is the LLM you use when your company refuses to let you use anything else. It's
What's
dark.
an LLM?
I'm sorry, LLM
Learning.
stands for large language model.
Oh, yeah.
And the LLMs that you're most familiar with probably are Copilot,
Mhm.
ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. So of those four, Copilot is trash. And I'll explain why here in a second. Um, Gemini is okay if you're already using Google Workspace, but I wouldn't use it probably otherwise. I would say it's a little bit better at data analysis than the others. So if you have a lot of spreadsheets, then it
Yeah,
can like make pretty charts and tables better than
yeah.
better than some of the others. Claude for a long time was quote unquote the ethical AI. The reasons cited for that have all gone out the window and they have reverted on almost every single one of them. So I think it was all a publicity marketing thing. And thought that from the beginning and never jumped on that bandwagon. And I stick with ChatGPT because unlike Gemini and Copilot, which have other assets they have to protect, right? Those are companies that have enormous assets beyond an LLM. They are protecting those. So they are slower to roll out new features for that reason. ChatGPT, they are literally nothing but an LLM. So they are at the very forefront of all of this. You're going to get the newest features, the fastest. I think their user interface is better than most. And my tip to new people to AI is like, just pick one. Just pick one and dive deep because knowing a little bit about all of them does you no service. Like, you need to understand how to manipulate one of these tools super well so that you can figure out what you can even get done with it.
Yeah, like I've tried like, you can integrate ChatGPT into Excel and I'll ask it like a question or ask it to do something and it has like no idea what it's like. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're an idiot. Like,
Yeah.
like oh,
Yeah. It probably works better to upload the Excel into ChatGPT than to go the opposite direction.
yes, indeed.
Yeah.
My own
And
experience
is
with LLMs is GPT, the Chat GPT, the paid version. Well, I mean, I've used the free version too, but I have clients who use the paid version. I have two clients who use the paid version and have requested that I use it because it helps reduce their, costs. They're longtime clients, so I say, okay, I don't take on new clients with that stipulation. And I dislike it immensely. And I am a very anti-AI user in a lot of ways. So yeah, I don't really know about using the other ones. I wish that they would all just go away, quite frankly. I don't think that AI is helping. And actually, part of what prompted this was I wrote a blog article for Fielding that was called "Fuck AI and the Horse It Rode In On." So that is my opinion on the
Yeah.
matter.
Melody and I are polar
I
opposites
do not like
in
AI
AI like implementation.
in
Yeah.
any capacity. But that being said, it's here, right? So like, yeah, I have to have these discussions. I am using them for a couple client. I am using it for a couple clients. I generally find that it is more trouble than it's worth. And, it makes me really think about converting to being Amish on some days.
Well, there's a human cost to all of this.
There
There's a
is.
human, there's a human cost to all of this technology that's, our children are accessing these days, our students are accessing. Um, but Fielding, I had the same experience. Like here I am a writing teacher. So what do writing teachers
Get
take
those
pay
blue books
attention
out.
to? Yeah, grammar or spelling. It's like now I welcome the free writing. Just whatever spelling they use, whatever punctuation they use, I welcome that. I have a lot of journals that I assign because of that fact. I need them to still think, connect things, to connect their life experiences to certain things. This summer it was music. Pick some songs, connect it. But AI is here, sorry, unless you turn Amish or decide to convert to Amish. So there has to be, and it's faster than we thought, I think. 2 years ago, we weren't really, we knew it was out there, but now that's another thing. It's moved faster than we have been able to face working with it.
Yeah. And
And
it's
I,
so fast that it has significantly outpaced policy. It's outpaced ethical guidelines. It's outpaced, and in some ways it has happened so fast that we're missing federal and state and local policy, or we're getting these weird policies. So, like, I live in a city that has set up a moratorium on new data centers, and everyone's like, wait, we have any? And we're like, yeah, we already have four. And people just had no idea. They were smallish. They weren't, having this big splashy impact like the Amazon one that tried to get in the next county over and got shut down by residents. But like, so that's all happening, right? And the policy is reactive instead of there being any time or space to like really grapple with this. Federal government's always behind and lagging in policy decisions. But then apply that to your workplace, right? Where our local school district that I'm aware of rolled out, I don't know if it was pilot or something else, but rolled it out, and or maybe it's even ChatGPT or Gemini because it was free to educators. Anyway, whatever they did, they rolled it out, and but not with really any guardrails, right? Like, so there's this tool, but like, are we training people on how to use it? Are they using it to plan curricula? Are they using it to grade papers? Like, what are we doing with this AI? And Melody has this, like, when you really get her amped up, it's like, so we have people submitting grants with AI, we have funders evaluating grants with AI. You're like, what are we even doing anymore? And I think we have to do things because they're important to being human, right? And so I think it's this interesting, like, we're feeling this squeeze, and it's like, what are the things that we want to preserve right now? What is the work we want to preserve? What is the ethic we want to preserve? What is the process that we want to preserve? And we have to be really intentional about it. Otherwise, you know, companies hire grant writers who do nothing but throw things into ChatGPT, and if there isn't a lot of oversight or there isn't someone who has, expertise, then who knows if there's a checkpoint before it goes out the door.
Yeah. I mean, and this just makes me feel like the way I look at it is like site visits are more important now than ever, right? Like getting somebody to come, getting a funder, potential funder to come and see your work in action is going to be even more important than, the proposal because, I feel like folks are going to trust proposals less. Because the other thing, okay, think of how fast this moved, right? In the last 2 years, AI usage in the grant world has increased by exponentially, right? So guess what? Guess what's going to happen over the next year? A lot of reports are going to be due. A lot of grant reports are going to be due for proposals that were written by AI and said that you were going to serve, to Fielding's previous example, said you were going to serve 5,000 people. And now you're left holding the bag, right?
And does the same organization use AI to write the report and not report accurate? I mean, I don't know. Like, there's a challenge here, right? Like, does the wool get pulled over the eyes of funders? Or do funders start to see, like, oh my gosh, we didn't do our due diligence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think so I think capitalism can be great, and I certainly see all the flaws of capitalism as well, right? And like I believe in the free market economy, and I see all of its downfalls as well. But I think the reality is like business will always drive first. And policy is like will always be slow to catch up, right? Because policy follows industry. Like policy is never going to lead. It's always going to be the market and business that's going to lead, and policy is always going to be behind. And I think that's where the education, the advocacy piece needs to come in because, like the policy is like you can't there's not going to be a state or government policy on how grant writers should be using them. And there's never going to be a state or federal policy that's going to give guidance, that's going to require private foundations to screen or not screen in a certain way. Like it's really just up to the free market economy for foundations to do it their way and grant writers to do it their way. And I think there'll just be the shifting of people who should have shift in and out. Like I think there'll just be foundations who like catch on and will place the value of like real people and real quality and strong programs first over like things that because I don't think AI is ever going to create those strong like programs and alignment. Like I agree with Fielding. It's just not. There's like it's just too complicated, right? So I think we're kind of in this like shifting of the sands kind of place. But I also think it's somewhat up to the grant writing industry to just be like, hey, foundations, like let me give you some scoop.
Yeah. Well, and I agree. I think, what foundations are though accountable for is to be good stewards of their money, right? And so part of the reason they collect report data is to measure whether they have been successful. And so while I agree that there isn't going to be sort of this broad policy that says you need to evaluate things this way or do things exactly this way, I do think that there is a strong potential for a report to come out in 2028 about 2025 to 2027, and how many grantors feel less connected to their grantees, right? Are investing in things they maybe wish they hadn't invested in. I think I could write that report now. I think it's coming, and so it continues to like to me, there's a big potential chasm there where an already pretty fractured sector, right? Thinking of foundations and nonprofits as a single, structure that's supposed to be like supporting, providing the safety net, moving social policy forward, whatever, just continues to fracture more because of AI. Yeah.
Yeah. I think some people are going to be like, yeah, yeah, I agree. I think there'll be like a reckoning for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's just like power for the course, right? Yeah, and just like you said, that, getting people to come to your client site or come to your site is important. I also really think it's important. So to go for grant writers to go out to their people and find their people, right? So like in the fall and the winter, like that's all the farm workshops and meetings and all the agricultural commissions get together and the Farm Bureau gets together and the blah blah blah. You're like, I try to go to as many of those as I can. I get in front of those people, and sometimes there are funders there and sometimes there's not. And making those relationships. I also just think people are so sick and tired of like connecting with AI. Like, you need help, and they're like, talk to the chat bot. I'm like, the chat bot is not going to solve this problem. Like, it's too complicated. And I think there's going to be kind of a dropping out of that and a real desire to come back to human connection. Because I think people just feel so isolated and alone and really angry at chatbots.
Amy, you're really positive. I am on the other end, whereas this loneliness is definitely an epidemic, and people have realized that they can talk to AI at 3 o'clock in the morning and it will talk back to you. And that's another thing, some more research coming out of a class that I'm taking on AI is that more and more people are using it for social interaction rather than just, business or writing or something. It's more social interaction. They're asking it for recommendations or advice. And, the people that really were isolated during COVID or um, have the tendency to be more of an introvert, um, it's becoming more and more popular. I hope we go back to human connection as much as possible because, as I say, I think that the human cost here is great.
Melody, was it
Great.
you who shared on the last call that there was a survey of kids in Europe and the kids and maybe I heard about this separately and then wanted to bring it back to this, but there was this big survey of kids in Europe and they were saying essentially like we want the adults in our life to take our phones away. Like we are drowning, we are miserable and we are addicted, right? And so I think about that too um with AI and LLMs. Like I have no doubt that I experience a dopamine hit when I get exactly the answer I was looking for from it. Like I think it is addictive. Like I think it's fun to use because it is a dopamine hit to get something so easily that I used to toil for hours to get, right? And to be fair, I'm putting a lot of time into these tools and that's why they're working well for me. But I think that's there. And so when you combine like fake therapy essentially with this experience of a dopamine hit, like this is just I think the next frontier of like social media addiction, right? It's fun to use when you can get it to work.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought you were going to bring up because I did share last time, Carla, about having been interacting with like a senior, an older gentleman, probably in his 80s, who said, I don't have to even leave my house anymore because I just talk to Claude on my phone. And I mean, I am very concerned about the baby boomer generation. I think they're less uh savvy about what AI is like just I think our young I hang out with a lot of Gen Zers because I have three Gen Z kids, so I'm like, oh, they're on it, they know that this is all kind of bullshit, right? And it's not, I mean, there are younger folks who maybe start to get inappropriate relationships with their AI models and things, but I think as a whole boomers seem to have a very limited ability to spot AI and the problematicness of AI in a way that Gen Zers as a whole have been better at, kind of pointing to. Um, and so,
Yes, we did a library assignment this summer, and it was like 10 slides, and they could spot fake or real in a second.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm put my face into the thing, I'm like, how did you know that?
Yeah.
And they go all throughout the whole picture, behind it, the way people are holding their hands. So they know. You're absolutely right. I just worry that their critical thinking skills are just muted by all of this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
and
yeah, go ahead.
um, so just to kind of address that, so my boys have had in high school and middle school like curriculum around like when they do have to do research a topic. Okay, well, what's real information and what's false information? And so they're building that stuff into the curriculum in middle school and high school because they start doing those research projects. So and Yeah, I had my son, I like made him do had him take a genocide and conflict class for a half semester, and they definitely talked a lot about propaganda. For sure. I was like, you're taking this class or I'm gonna whether you like it or not. So like it's there, like they're doing that in educate, well, at least around here, but
Yeah, we're a little protected.
I dropped a link
Go.
to an article that actually came out a long time ago. I'm trying to remember. Oh, no, actually, it was just 2024, so it wasn't that long ago. In the AI world, it was a long time ago. But it basically the title is Generative AI enhances individual creativity but reduces the collective diversity of novel content. So, and I'd read another article, and it may even be referenced in this one that was even earlier that said. AI decreases the creativity of the most creative people, but increases the creativity of people who are less creative. So we actually end up with this, this what's the word? When you bring things closer to the center. But anyway, for those of us who are super creative, maybe it dampens our creativity with overuse, but maybe for folks who are less creative in written word in particular, right? Yeah, maybe there's more creativity to be unlocked.
Well, and that pretty much brings us to time. So thank you for coming and joining this conversation. And I hope that it's kind of created some perspectives, some new perspectives. I know I definitely was open to some new perspectives today. That's one of the reasons why I love these conversations with Fielding and the folks who join, because it's always like, oh yeah, that's another way to look at it. And maybe it isn't all as bad as I like to think it is.
Oh,
Well, have you
it
researched?
is.
To be
It
Yeah,
honest.
it is. Have you researched
I,
Amish communities out in San
yeah,
Francisco? Are there?
I just haven't like listened to a podcast or read the news yet, so there's still time today for ice cream and wine.
I feel like in ways Fielding, this is, I forget the word too, we're bringing things to center because like I feel like the more we have these, the less anti-AI I am and the more you're becoming anti-AI.
I feel like my come to the center is like I wish it had never been let out of the bottle, and I kind of love it. I use it. I get the business use case. I enjoy building in it. And I've always wondered if I should have had a second career as like a coder, because I think that's how my brain works, is like in logical hierarchies and all these things. And it works great with grant writing, but I think that's why I like AI. I admit it.
I don't. I
Well, it
don't.
was lovely to meet you all. Carla, I'll
Thanks for
probably
attending.
find
All
you
right,
one
thanks
Yes.
day.
everyone.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.